We begin tonight with a meditation on silence and on weight. Our subject is the Great Wall of China, a structure so immense, so vast, that it defies the very concept of a single human endeavor. It is a structure that is not merely built on the landscape, but is the landscape, a serpent of stone and earth draped across mountains and deserts. But we will not focus solely on the history taught in books, the patrols, the dynasties, the mortar and brickwork. Tonight, we listen closely, allowing the wind to carry the whispers of the oldest stories, the deep mythological lore that claims the wall's origins stretch back far beyond the reign of Qin Shi Huang, back to the very foundations of Chinese civilization. The wall is not a single structure, but a collective entity. 1,000 miles of stone laid down over 2 millennia by different states, different intentions, and different hands. We seek the echoes in the earliest parts of this vast network, the rough, enormous blocks of uncarved stone laid by the Zhou and Qin states, long before the standardization of the Ming Dynasty brickwork. These are the stones that hold the deepest secrets. Close your eyes and visualize the wall not as a tourist site, but as a silent geological entity. Feel the immense, cold silence of the stone. Each block, weathered and worn, speaks of a time when the very act of moving such material required forces far greater than human muscle. The earliest foundations, often sunk deep into mountain passes, are massive, irregularly shaped megaliths. It is in the size of these stones that the human narrative breaks and the mythological story begins. The official history speaks of human labor, the soldiers, the peasants, the forced conscripts. But the lore whispers of a time when the scale of the wall was first conceived during a period of unimaginable global crisis, a time when the earth itself was in revolt, a time of chaos water. These massive ancient stones, silent and rooted, are the primary witnesses to this mythological past. They stand as immutable proof that the project was not merely a military endeavor, but a cosmic one, an attempt to impose ultimate order on the earth, mirroring the order of the heavens. They represent a fundamental, primal intention to draw an indelible line across the natural world. The deep, slightly uneven tone of the narration mirrors the rhythm of these ancient stones, the slow, relentless pace of the geological time contained within them. We are searching for the voice of the stone, the resonance of the first builders who, according to legend, walked with strides that spanned mountains and lifted boulders as easily as we might lift a pebble. This voice speaks of the Great Flood and the giants.
To understand the wall's mythological purpose, we must first travel back to the fundamental crisis of early Chinese civilization, the Great Flood, Da Yu Jishui, a chaotic, sprawling event that precedes recorded history, likely around 2200 BCE. This flood was not merely high water, it was a state of cosmic imbalance, a terrifying breakdown of the order between heaven and earth. Imagine the waters, not a swift, rushing river, but a sprawling, unending sea that covered the fields, submerged the foothills, and threatened to dissolve the very concept of permanent human settlement. This was the chaos water, an unending liquid threat that symbolized the constant danger of the natural world consuming human order. The survival of humanity hinged on controlling this primordial surge. The earliest stories describe the initial failed attempts to control the water. Gun, the father of Yu the Great, was tasked with resolving the deluge. His method was to block the water, using massive amounts of magically expanding soil, Shirang, to build dams and dikes. But the chaos water was too powerful. It simply rose higher, circumventing and eventually destroying every obstacle, proving that mere human force and simple resistance were futile against cosmic-scale catastrophe. Gun's failure was profound. It represented the failure of all previous short-sighted human attempts to defend against the vast, overwhelming power of nature. His inability to contain the waters led to his execution by the Emperor Shun. But the lesson was passed down. The true solution could not be mere defense, but directional guidance. The Great Flood became the defining historical trauma and the foundational mythological justification for all later efforts to define and defend the Chinese world. If the chaos water could not be stopped, it must be contained within defined, ordered channels. The wall, in its later defensive form, is a physical, solid echo of this need for containment, a symbolic line drawn against the fluid, consuming chaos of the external world. The slow, deep tone of the narrative now reflects the vast, relentless pressure of those ancient waters. They are the constant, unseen enemy against which the entire civilization was defined. The need for a structure of ultimate geological scale, a continuous barrier that mirrors the boundaries of controlled rivers, was born in the terror of this great deluge. This crisis established the cosmic contract. Rulers must maintain order, tianxia, and the first and greatest act of order is defining the limits of chaos. When Qin Shi Huang later unified the states and built his Great Northern Wall, he was not just fighting the Xiongnu, he was symbolically completing the work of Gun and Yu, trying to draw an unbreakable, solid line against the ancient, liquid chaos that threatened to flood the world once more.
Out of the failure of Gun and the terror of the Great Flood arose the true architect of order, Yu the Great, or Da Yu. Yu's solution was revolutionary, setting the philosophical and engineering precedent for all later monumental Chinese structures, including the Great Wall. Yu understood that the chaos water could not be defeated by simple opposition. Instead of trying to build up like a dam, he resolved to work with the water, guiding it through channels and canals that directed its destructive energy into organized paths toward the sea. His strategy was one of guidance, channeling, and integration with the natural flow.
He spent 13 years tirelessly working the land, reshaping mountains and digging the riverbeds that established the 9 ancient provinces of China. The lore suggests that Yu did not work alone. He was aided by celestial beings and was granted magical tools such as the Lo Shu, or river map, which helped him understand the true, complex flow of the Earth's energy and waterways. His success was not just a feat of engineering. It was a feat of cosmic understanding, a demonstration of alignment with the mandate of heaven. Yu's efforts defined the very concept of order in the Chinese world. By channeling the water, he created defined, stable land for agriculture and settlement. The controlled rivers became the veins of the organized world, establishing the inner stability of the realm, or Zhongguo. The vertical solution that Yu provided, the creation of deep, stable channels to control the horizontal flow of the water, is the direct philosophical ancestor of the Great Wall. While the wall appears to be a defense, a dam, its true mythological role, inherited from Yu's work, is a channeling device. The wall is seen as a massive, continuous channel, a solid riverbed for the flow of human and cosmic energy. It defines the stable, safe agricultural lands to the south and guides the chaotic, mobile energy of the nomadic tribes, the chaos water of the north, into predictable patterns. The slow, deep narrative here emphasizes the profound transformation from chaos to order. Yu's work established the necessity of massive, permanent structures to control horizontal forces, thus setting the stage for the giant kings and their ability to move the necessary scale of stone. The Great Wall, even in its latest form, is Yu's channel built on land, a permanent, immovable testament to the need to guide, rather than merely block, the forces of chaos.
We now move to the true mythological architects of the wall's deep foundation, the Kunlun Shen. The giant kings, or powerful beings said to inhabit the celestial Mount Kunlun, the axis mundi of ancient Chinese cosmology. These were the Earth's first builders, beings of immense scale who walked the land long before the ascendancy of mortal men. The Lord describes the giants as having bronze heads and square feet, capable of taking strides that spanned vast mountain ranges. Their strength was not just physical, but geological. They could manipulate the Earth's crust with ease. They were the original stewards of the landscape, capable of lifting the immense megaliths that Yu the Great needed to define his channels, and that later emperors would require for their northern barriers. The mountain of Kunlun was their home, a mythical peak that pierced the heavens, linking the mortal world with the realm of the gods. The giants were thus intermediaries, possessing the divine knowledge of stone placement and the structural integrity needed to withstand cosmic pressures, such as the Great Flood. The lore posits that the giants were summoned or perhaps volunteered their services during the Great Flood crisis. Only beings of their monumental strength could have aided you the Great in shifting the vast quantities of earth and massive foundation stones needed to carve out the immense riverbeds and define the new provinces. Their work was the definition of cosmic engineering. When Qin Shi Huang, thousands of years later, sought to build his unified wall, the challenge of moving the largest, earliest stones in the most remote mountainous regions was insurmountable for human labor alone. The common lore among the people, passed down through generations, was that the wall was begun by giants, finished by men. This mythological contribution lends a profound spiritual weight to the oldest sections of the wall, the vast, unshaped blocks of granite and schist embedded in the steepest mountain passes. These stones, too heavy and too perfectly placed for simple human logistics, are attributed to the residual power and memory of the Kunlun Shen. The giant kings in this lore provided the initial unshakable stability that would allow human hands to continue the work for millennia. The slow, deep rhythm of the narration here echoes the steady, powerful steps of these ancient, colossal builders. They represent the essential primordial force needed to initiate a project of such impossible scale. The Great Wall, therefore, is not a purely human structure. It is a collaboration between mortal ambition and mythological power, with the giants providing the necessary impossible foundation.
The myth of the Giant's Stone is central to the wall's esoteric lore. It provides a non-historical explanation for the most challenging and visually striking aspects of the wall's earliest construction. The presence of massive, unmortared megaliths set in impossible locations, often dating back to pre-Qin state walls. If you walk the truly ancient, unrestored sections, the lines built by the Qi or Yuan states, you will find foundation stones that defy simple human logistics. These stones weigh many tons, are irregular in shape, and sit high on steep, remote mountain ridges. The terrain is often too treacherous for even the most basic medieval pulley systems. The common folklore is simple and powerful. No human hand lifted this stone. These are the giant's stones, dropped or placed by the Kunlun Shen during their work with Yu the Great, or later provided as raw material for the early emperors. The myth suggests that the giants could soften the stone with their will, shaping it just enough for its purpose before letting it harden again, or simply carry it across valleys in the folds of their immense garments. The perfection of their placement is what makes them mythological. They are set with a geomantic precision that human surveyors could not have achieved with the technology of the time. These massive foundation blocks are seen as holding a primordial energy. They are the connection points between the wall and the deepest layers of the earth. Because they were handled by the giants, beings close to the gods, they possess an innate, unbreakable spiritual stability, far surpassing the strength of later, simple brick and mortar. The presence of the giant's stones validates the wall's cosmic purpose.
It was not just built to keep out human enemies. It was built on a foundation strong enough to withstand the chaos water and the tremors of an earth recovering from catastrophe. The megaliths are the physical anchors of the dragon's spine, ensuring the wall's permanence and its spiritual function as a global boundary. The slow, sustained tone of the narrative now dwells on the silence of these isolated megaliths. They are the sleeping memory of the giants, waiting patiently in the remote passes. They remind us that the Great Wall is fundamentally a geological structure disguised as a military fortification, a monument initiated by forces beyond human comprehension and bound to the earth with a strength that lasts for 10,000 generations.
To the ancient Chinese, the Great Wall was never just a defensive barrier. It was, first and foremost, a massive, engineered expression of geomancy, feng shui, the practice of arranging man-made structures in harmony with the invisible forces of the cosmos. The wall was conceived as the earth dragon's spine, Long Mai. The dragon, Long, is the most powerful and auspicious symbol in Chinese mythology, representing power, change, and the vital, flowing energy of the earth known as Qi. The dragon's spine is the geological and spiritual pathway along which this Qi flows. The wall, traversing the peaks and valleys, was intentionally built to follow, guide, and embody this dragon's spine. Imagine the immense scale of this belief. The builders were not merely looking at topography. They were interpreting the flow of vital energy. Where the wall rose sharply over a mountain, it was the dragon arching its back. Where it dipped into a valley, it was the dragon resting its tail. This mythological interpretation elevated the construction from mere engineering to cosmic calligraphy written onto the land. The purpose of embodying the dragon's spine was to channel and contain the nation's vital qi. By defining a massive, immovable boundary, the wall helped to consolidate the good fortune and life energy of the structured agrarian lands of the South, preventing the positive qi from dissipating into the chaotic, untamed lands of the North. This concept explains the wall's often counterintuitive placement. Sections that seem militarily useless, snaking over impossible ridges. These placements were not about military logic, but about spiritual logic, ensuring the structure aligned perfectly with the dragon's pulse. The wall had to breathe with the mountain rather than against it. The slow, deep tone of the narrative now embodies the powerful, steady flow of the Long Mai. The wall is a living entity guided by geomantic principles. Its enduring power lies not in its height, but in its absolute harmony with the Earth's most powerful spirit. When the wall was successful, it was because the dragon was strong. When sections crumbled, it was interpreted as the dragon resting or being disturbed. The Great Wall, therefore, is a massive, solidified prayer, an architectural effort to bind the very forces of fortune and vitality to the unified Chinese realm, ensuring that the Earth Dragon remained a benevolent and protective force for the emperors who built upon its powerful spine.
The mythological origins of the wall converged with the historical imperative of the Qin dynasty, providing the ultimate justification for a single, unified, colossal structure. The historical figure at this nexus is Qin Shi Huang, rule 221 to 210 BCE, the first emperor of a unified China, whose reign was defined by an obsession with absolute order, permanence, and immortality. Qin Shi Huang inherited the concept of the wall from the fragmented state barriers of his predecessors. He consolidated the states and, driven by an almost pathological fear of external chaos, the Jiangnu, and internal dissolution, the memory of the Great Flood, he mandated the linking of the northern defense lines into one single, unbreakable entity. His core motivation was rooted in the mandate of heaven, Tianming, the ancient philosophical belief that the ruler's authority was granted by heaven on the condition that he governed justly and maintained order, Tianxia. The wall was Qin Shi Huang's greatest, most visible act to demonstrate his unwavering commitment to maintaining this order. It was a physical promise to heaven that chaos would not breach his realm. The emperor's obsession with immortality directly informed the nature of the wall. He did not just want a temporary defense. He wanted a structure of absolute geological permanence, a barrier that would last for 10,000 generations. Wan Li. He sought to build something that defied time and decay, a structure that would secure his legacy and perhaps his own passage into the immortal realm. The lore suggests that Qin Shi Huang was keenly aware of the legends of Yu the Great and the giants. He demanded the most massive stones be used in the most critical, geomantically important passes, believing that by anchoring his wall to the foundations laid by the mythological builders, he could imbue it with their eternal strength. He was not just building a wall, he was attempting to complete the cosmic channeling project begun by Yu. The deep, steady tone of the narrative now reflects the monolithic will of the first emperor, a will so absolute that it could move mountains of earth and men. His edict to unify the disparate state walls was an unprecedented act of architectural and political faith. The wall under Qin Shi Huang became the ultimate cosmic boundary. It was the line that separated the ordered world of the Han people, the Zhongwall, from the chaotic, nomadic, untamed world of the North, a world that threatened to bring back the state of chaos water. The first emperor's legacy is forever cemented in the stone of the wall, a testament to a man who sought to defy both chaos and death through scale and stone.
No single piece of human lore is more poignant or universally known about the Great Wall than the tragedy of Meng Jiangnu. Her story cuts through the massive scale, the imperial ambition, and the mythological grandeur, anchoring the wall's identity in the immense human cost paid by the common people.
The story, dating back to the Qin dynasty, tells of Meng Jiangnu, a woman whose husband, Van Qiliang, was captured by imperial officers shortly after their wedding and conscripted to work on the brutal northern construction project. When winter came, she traveled thousands of miles on foot, carrying warm clothing for him. Upon reaching the vast construction site, she was met with the horrifying news. Her husband had died from exhaustion and abuse and was buried within the wall itself, his body used as part of the foundation. Overwhelmed by grief, she sat before the massive stone structure and wept for 3 days and 3 nights. The lore says that the power of her grief, her purity, and her filial devotion was so great that it caused a section of the wall to collapse, revealing the bones of her husband, which she gathered for a proper burial. This miraculous event exposed the brutality of the Qin emperor and served as a divine judgment against his cruel methods of construction. The tears of Meng Jiangnu are central to the wall's soul. They represent the collective sorrow and sacrifice of the millions of conscripts, slaves, and peasants whose lives were consumed by the project. The tears provided the wall with its human conscience, a powerful reminder that the dragon's spine was built upon a foundation of blood, sweat, and profound loss. The deep, mournful tone of the narrative now reflects this powerful human tragedy. The wall is seen as a consuming tomb, a structure that was not just built with stone and earth, but with the very bodies and souls of the builders. The collapsing wall, triggered by her pure, unadulterated grief, serves as a crucial mythological counterbalance to the emperor's absolute ambition. It proves that even the most massive, divinely inspired structure is vulnerable to the power of human emotion and moral injustice. Meng Jiangnu's story ensures that the Great Wall is not just a symbol of imperial might, but also a permanent monument to the enduring spirit and sacrifice of the common Chinese people.
Beyond its geomantic role as the Earth Dragon's spine, the Great Wall holds a deep mythological significance as a celestial boundary, a physical structure built on Earth to mirror and guard the sacred order established in the heavens. The ancient Chinese viewed the sky as the celestial kingdom, governed by the North Star, the Emperor's Star, and organized into quadrants and constellations. The northern regions of the sky were the boundaries of this kingdom, often associated with the nomadic tribes and the celestial equivalents of chaos and potential invasion. The lore suggests that the wall's massive, continuous form was intended to align with or reflect the major northern stellar boundaries, acting as a terrestrial ecliptic plane for the empire. By drawing this line across the earth, the emperor sought to solidify the link between his earthly realm and the permanent, immutable order of the heavens. This belief system provided an added cosmological justification for the wall's immense scale. It had to be massive enough, long enough, and permanent enough to serve as a worthy terrestrial counterpart to the divine boundaries in the sky. It was an architectural spell cast upon the earth to confirm the emperor's mandate of heaven. The signal towers, which we will explore later, contribute significantly to this celestial lore. Their original purpose was not just military communication, but also spiritual communication. Altars where smoke signals could ascend directly to the heavens, transmitting warnings or rituals to the corresponding star systems. The towers were the antennae connecting the Earth Dragon's spine to the celestial kingdom. The deep, reflective tone of the narrative now emphasizes the silent, cold alignment of stone and stars. The builders of the wall, guided by ancient astrologers and geomancers, were not merely looking at maps, they were constantly consulting the heavens to ensure the structure was in perfect cosmic harmony. The wall as a celestial boundary is the ultimate expression of the emperor's belief in cosmic order. It is a physical declaration that the Chinese realm is divinely organized and protected, drawing a line that not only keeps out human invaders, but also wards off the celestial chaos symbolized by unstable stars and northern darkness. The wall is a tangible piece of the night sky, fixed permanently onto the earth.
Building upon the concept of the wall as the Earth Dragon's spine, Long Mei, the lore gives special significance to the great mountain passes, the monumental fortified gates, such as Shanghai Guan, the first pass under heaven, and Jiayuguan, the Iron Gate. These passes were not just weak points for military defense. They were the strategic points where the dragon's breath, qi, flowed in and out of the wall structure. In geomantic lore, a continuous structure like the wall could potentially stifle the dragon's qi, leading to stagnation and misfortune within the empire. Therefore, the passes were intentionally designed as magnificent release valves, points where the vital energy could be controlled, contained, and directed. Imagine a living creature. The wall is the spine, and the passes are the breathing points. At these monumental gates, the architects and geomancers created conditions where the energy of the wild, chaotic north could be filtered and transformed before entering the ordered realm of the south. The passes allowed necessary, controlled interaction between the two worlds, the exchange of trade, information, and influence, without compromising the wall's fundamental barrier function. The lore associated with the architecture of the passes is profound. They were often constructed with multiple layers of towering, geomantically positioned fortresses, designed to slow, twist, and purify the energy flow. The monumental size of the main gatehouses was a spiritual defense, meant to overawe both human invaders and chaotic spiritual energies. The most famous passes, like Shanghai Guan, where the wall meets the sea, were seen as the cosmic anchors
of the dragon's spine. The specific location where the wall plunges into the ocean was believed to be the dragon's head drinking the water, a point of immense stabilizing power over the elements. The slow, resonant tone of the narrative now emphasizes the steady, hidden movement of this vital energy. The soldiers who garrisoned these passes were not just gatekeepers. They were, in a spiritual sense, chi regulators, tasked with guarding the breath of the earth dragon itself. The lore of the passes reminds us that the wall's function was complex and holistic. It was a massive, linear structure designed not just to stop movement, but to channel and manage the invisible, powerful flow of cosmic life force, ensuring the continuous health and prosperity of the Chinese realm through carefully regulated spiritual respiration.
As we trace the wall's vast extent, we arrive at its famous and highly symbolic western limit, the Jade Gate, or Yumen Pass. This pass, located far in the desolate reaches of Gansu Province, holds a lore of profound significance, acting as the final magical barrier between the ordered Chinese realm and the mysterious, potentially giant-haunted West. The Jade Gate was so named because it was the point through which the precious commodity of jade, a material of immense spiritual and cultural significance associated with purity and immortality, entered the empire via the Silk Road. The gate was therefore the guardian of purity, tasked with ensuring that only the highest quality of goods and influence were allowed to pass into the heart of the realm. In the lore, the West was a place of mystery, powerful magic, and unknown beings. Beyond the Jade Gate lay the vast, desolate deserts and the towering Kunlun Mountains, the mythical home of the giants. The Jade Gate stood as the last line of defense against both human invasion and the potential return of the powerful, untamed forces that resided beyond the known world. The passage of travelers through Yumen Pass was often seen as a ritualistic boundary crossing. Travelers leaving China passed through the gate into a realm of immense spiritual danger, while those entering were welcomed into the structure of Chinese order. The gate itself was a magical seal, symbolically marking the end of the emperor's physical and spiritual control. The mythological significance is tied back to the giants, or Kunlun Shen. Because their home, Mount Kunlun, lay to the west, the Jade Gate was viewed as the point where the residual influence of these colossal beings was strongest. The gate stood guard, ensuring that the powerful primordial energies of the giants were contained within the mythical mountain ranges and did not wander into the structured farmlands. The deep, slightly desolate tone of the narrative now reflects the loneliness and vastness of the western frontier. The men who manned the Jade Gate were not just soldiers, they were the guardians of the world's edge, tasked with maintaining the final boundary drawn by the dragon's spine. The Jade Gate is the wall's most potent symbolic marker, a stone declaration that the world beyond is mysterious, powerful, and requires the absolute, final protection of the wall. It is the architectural testament
to the Chinese belief in a divinely ordered center, surrounded by the fascinating, dangerous unknown.
Among the darkest and most enduring legends surrounding the Great Wall is the myth of the mortar of bone. The horrifying belief that the mortar used in the earliest, most difficult, and most crucial sections of the wall was mixed with human bones or blood to bind the structure and ensure its spiritual permanence. This lore stems directly from the historical reality of the brutal Qin dynasty conscription and the immense mortality rate among the forced laborers. The sheer number of deaths on the construction site was astronomical, leading to the folk belief that the bodies of the dead were not merely buried under the wall, but were integrated into its very material composition. The myth suggests that this act was a form of human sacrifice, a cruel, practical solution to provide the wall with a spiritual anchor. The life force, or Jing, of the sacrificed workers was thought to be absorbed into the mortar, giving the structure an unbreakable spiritual bond that would defy both time and the elements. This belief is a crucial part of the human conscience of the wall. It serves as a permanent, grotesque reminder of the emperor's tyranny. The workers who died became permanent, unwilling components of the structure they were forced to build. The wall, therefore, is not just a defensive barrier. It is a colossal, linear tomb built from the life essence of the common people. Historically, the sticky, white, glutinous rice flour mortar, Numi Jiang, used in later sections, was incredibly strong, leading to the misinterpretation that it contained pulverized human material. But the strength of the myth transcends the historical facts. The deep, hushed tone of the narrative now conveys the gravity of this dark lore. The wall's stability is viewed not just as a result of clever engineering, but as a direct consequence of this mass sacrifice. The enduring power of the structure is a constant reminder of the price paid for imperial ambition and permanent order. The mortar of bone myth contrasts sharply with the mythological power of the giant stone. While the giants provided the wall with divine, geological stability, the dead laborers provided it with a tragic, human permanence. The wall is thus bound by two opposing forces: the colossal power of the gods and the immense, heartbreaking sorrow of man. The existence of the massive, perfectly placed giant stones, Section 5, inevitably leads to the mythological lore concerning the giants' tools. The lost technology and miraculous implements used by the Kunlun Shen to execute their impossible feats of megalithic building. These tools are not described as simple hammers or chisels, but as instruments of geological magic. The lore posits that the giants possessed the ability to manipulate matter at a molecular or energetic level, allowing them to carve, transport, and place stones weighing dozens of tons with zero effort. Imagine the mythological implements: the softening mallet,
a tool capable of temporarily rendering granite as pliable as clay, allowing the giants to mold it into the exact shape needed for geomantic alignment before it solidified again. The floating rope, a magical rope that could be attached to a boulder, granting it momentary anti-gravity properties, allowing it to be effortlessly carried across valleys and placed on the highest peaks. The chi-scribing chisel, a chisel that didn't just carve the surface of the stone, but inscribed patterns that allowed the stone to draw and channel the earth's vital chi more effectively. The lore of the giant's tools explains the impossibility of the earliest unmortared foundations. It is the only way to reconcile the human time frame with the megalithic reality of the most remote sections. This technology was lost to humanity after the giants retreated to Kunlun Mountain, leaving mankind only with the arduous, slow techniques of human labor. The slow, slightly wonder-filled tone of the narrative now reflects the awe of this lost magical technology. The search for the wall's origins is in part a search for the residual power of these forgotten tools, which are believed to have been lost or buried near the most important original foundation stones. The giant's tools serve as a profound symbol of the difference between mythological and historical construction. The giants built with ease and cosmic alignment, humans built with immense sacrifice, blood, and constant struggle. The perfection of the earliest foundations made with these lost tools forever mocks the slow, brutal effort required to complete the remaining sections. The signal or warning towers that punctuate the Great Wall at regular intervals are critical elements of its lore, serving dual purposes: military communication and spiritual alarm between the earth and the heavens. Historically, these towers were crucial for military defense, using coded smoke signals by day and fire signals by night to transmit warnings of invasion. A single signal meant a small force, two meant a medium force, and so on. This system created an unprecedented level of communication speed across the vast Chinese frontier. In the spiritual lore, the towers were much more than fire stations. They were geomantic altars, strategic vertical structures built at points of concentrated qi flow along the dragon's spine. Their purpose was to launch the alarm not just to the next human outpost, but to the celestial kingdom itself. Section 9. The smoke and fire rising from the tower platforms were seen as a sacred medium. The smoke, especially, was a form of ritualistic offering, carrying the warnings and prayers of the Emperor directly to the North Star, Emperor Star, and the celestial generals who guarded the heavenly realm. The towers were literally the wall's antennas of warning. The lore suggests that the placement and height of the towers were not random. Each was positioned to maximize its geomantic alignment, ensuring that the warning signal traveled along the most auspicious spiritual path to its celestial destination.
The towers are the wall's eyes and voice, constantly looking and speaking to the sky. The deep, slightly urgent tone of the narrative now embodies the ancient purpose of these watchtowers, the steady, vigilant readiness for chaos. The men who manned these towers were, in a spiritual sense, priests of the signal, tasked with ensuring the perfect ritual transmission of the alarm to both heaven and earth. The warning towers transform the wall from a passive barrier into an active communicative entity. They are a permanent declaration that the Chinese realm is not only defended by stone, but is also under the constant, active protection and vigilance of the gods, whose assistance can be summoned in a rising plume of smoke.
To meditate on the Great Wall's scale and age is to contemplate its incredible endurance, a quiet battle against time and the elements. In the deepest lore, the wall is viewed not as an inert artifact, but as a living entity, the earth dragon made solid, undergoing a perpetual process of erosion, adaptation, and renewal. The immense age of the wall, with its earliest sections dating back over 2,500 years, means it is in a constant state of decay. Erosion, plant growth, landslides, and the slow, inexorable force of wind and rain constantly dismantled the stone and earth. Yet, the wall persists. This persistence fuels the lore of the dragon's quiet, slow life. The crumbling sections are not signs of failure, but signs of the dragon breathing, shedding its skin, and resting. The sections that are restored and rebuilt are seen as the dragon healing its wounds, the continuous human labor being the necessary medicine to sustain its life. The concept of endurance is key. The wall is a testament to the Chinese philosophical belief in long-term cyclical effort. The wall knows time is an enemy, but it also knows that time is cyclical. It outlasts empires, dynasties, and individuals, confirming its position as a permanent feature of the landscape. The deep, steady tone of the narrative now reflects the quiet, relentless power of nature's forces against the stone. The wall's slow, magnificent decay is a process of integration. The stone is slowly returning to the earth from which the giants first lifted it, while the core of the dragon's spine remains eternally defined. Viewing the wall as a living entity allows us to appreciate its function beyond mere defense. It is a massive geological clock, a permanent marker that measures human history against the slow, profound movements of the earth. Its survival is a quiet miracle, proof that the geomantic intent of the giants and emperors successfully breathed life into the greatest human-made structure on the planet.
The wall is universally known by its Chinese name, 10,000 Li Long Wall, Wan Li Chong Cheng. This name is not a precise measurement. It is a critical piece of mythological and philosophical lore that defines the structure's ultimate intent. The traditional li is a unit of distance, roughly equating to 500 meters or half a kilometer. Therefore, 10,000 li would be approximately 5,000 kilometers, which is a massive distance, but still less than the estimated 21,000 plus kilometers that the wall and its branches actually cover. The number 10,000, Wan, in ancient Chinese cosmology, is a symbolic term meaning innumerable, immeasurable, infinite, or complete. It is the largest countable number used to express eternity or totality, similar to how a Western concept might use 1,000,000 or 1,000 years. By naming the wall the 10,000 li-long wall, the emperors were not making a geographical claim. They were making a philosophical and political claim. They were declaring that the wall was eternal, designed to last for 10,000 generations, complete, defining the entire comprehensive border of the civilized world, immeasurable, a structure whose scale transcends human comprehension. This mythological name imbues the wall with a sense of unending power and permanence. It elevates the structure beyond a simple military defense and transforms it into a cosmic boundary that has no natural end, only a symbolic limit. The wall is seen as an object that is as complete and eternal as the mandate of heaven itself. The slow, resonant tone of the narrative here emphasizes the profound meaning of this symbol. The wall is not a temporary fix. It is a permanent, eternal separation of order and chaos, fixed onto the earth by a name that promises infinity. The myth of the 1,000-mile structure is the ultimate expression of imperial ego and faith. The name itself is an architectural spell, a declaration that the empire is so vast and so divinely ordered that its boundary must be considered infinite, a line drawn forever against the encroaching chaos of the world.
A final, powerful piece of lore concerning the Kunlun Shen, giants, is the belief that they did not perish or entirely retreat after their initial work with Yu the Great and the early emperors. Instead, they are merely sleeping giants, acting as the passive, spiritual guardians of the wall's most remote, rugged, and unrestored sections. The lore suggests that the giants, having completed the foundational, impossible work, the giants' stones, grew weary of the increasingly petty conflicts of human dynasties. They did not leave the wall, but instead transformed themselves into geological features, massive, inert presences slumbering deep within the mountain passes and the most inaccessible ravines. Where the wall disappears into a jumble of massive ancient stone and earth, sections often too remote or steep for modern human restoration, the local lore whispers that this is where a giant is resting. They are the wall's ultimate defense, not by actively fighting, but by their massive, powerful, inert presence. Imagine the image, a truly ruined section where the wall blends seamlessly back into the mountain ridge. That ridge in the lore is the giant's shoulder or spine, providing a permanent, stable barrier that no human army could ever truly breach. This lore explains the wall's incredible resilience. The sleeping giants provide the wall with a constant, subtle, primordial strength. Their dreams are the wall's stability. Their heavy breathing is the wind that whistles through the passes. The slow, deep tone of the narrative here settles into a profound stillness, reflecting the giant's quiet slumber. The few shepherds or solitary travelers who stumble upon these truly hidden sections feel not just the loneliness of the remote wall, but the overwhelming presence of something vast and ancient. The slumbering strength of the mythical architects who initiated this colossal project. The sleeping giants provide the perfect mythological ending to the wall's story. They are the constant, enduring proof that the structure is not purely human. The Great Wall will survive because its foundation is not merely stone, but the slumbering bodies of its divine creators, awaiting the next time the chaos water rises.
We conclude our meditation on the mythological origins of the Great Wall of China. We have traveled from the liquid terror of the Great Flood to the quiet, powerful slumber of the giants. We have witnessed the earth dragon's spine built upon the foundations of cosmic order and cemented with the tears of human sacrifice. The Great Wall is a colossal structure of perpetual duality. It is military defense and geomantic channeling. It is human ingenuity and the lost technology of the giants. It is the absolute will of the emperor and the immense sorrow of the conscripts. The wall's true enduring purpose is not just to defend territory, but to draw a permanent, visible line between order and chaos. It is a line drawn between myth and history, where the legends of Yu the Great meet the conscripts of Qin Shi Huang. Heaven and earth, where the celestial boundaries are mirrored by the earth dragon's spine. The known and the unknown, where the structured, agrarian Chinese world meets the vast, untamed nomadic chaos. The wall is a permanent, massive meditation on the fragility of civilization. It serves as a constant reminder that human order must be perpetually defined and defended against the forces of dissolution, forces that are not only human, but mythological, elemental, and spiritual. The very stone of the wall, whether a giant's megalith or a common brick, holds this story. It is a story of colossal ambition, cosmic alignment, and heartbreaking human cost. It is a structure that endures because its builders, both human and giant, imparted upon it a sense of eternal, immovable purpose. The wall stands not as a monument to victory, but as a monument to perseverance. A massive, continuous line of stone that will remain fixed to the earth, quietly watching the cycles of history until the earth dragon stirs and the chaos water rises once more.